Everybody, appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, we're going to get into Demar Derozan on the Draymond Green podcast, what he said on there, talking about playing for the Chicago Bulls and how it's different. We're also going to break down our expectations for Demar heading into next season. And then at the end, we talk with you guys, the fans of the show, asking questions and laughing at Jimmy Butlers Hair. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Bulls. Let's go!
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? I am Pat the Designer, and I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day, even though we're going a little bit later here today. If this is your first listen, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast at, and we're here on YouTube. If you want to help us grow, man, just leave a comment in the comment section below, and also make sure, if you're listening on the podcast side, to leave that 5-star review for us, because that does grow us. We're trying to make ourselves the best Bulls podcast on the internet. So I know everybody's looking a little bit confused, or if you're listening a little bit confused, right? Because where's Hayes, Pat? Hayes is moving on up. And so he's setting up the new studio, getting things ready for that. So you got your boy here solo. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us. Let's get into kind of what we heard today from Demar Derozan, talking about what it's like to be a Chicago Bull, right? He was on the Draymond Green podcast today, had a lot of good things to say about the Chicago Bulls organization and really coming here, and how he felt like it was a resurgence of his career. But there was one thing that he said in the podcast that really stood out to me, right? And it was when he was talking about breaking or what it was like to be on the court playing against the Knicks, game-winning situation. He gets the ball in his hands, turnaround jumper, air ball. All the air comes out of the building. He said he could just feel it. He could be like, he felt like he messed up the whole mood. He felt like he had destroyed everything that those fans came there and expected to see. And it's what set the trend for the rest of the season. There's some interesting things that actually go into that trend when you're talking about Demar Derozan, but we saw the rest of the year, right? He basically explained it throughout the rest of the year. Listen, that was me giving back to us. Or that was Demar giving back to us. That was him giving back and saying, listen, hey, that was bad. We're never going to have that again. And how many game winners did we see? How many clutch moments did we see? How many big-time shots did we see Demar Derozan knock down, to the point where, right, you have to ask the question, and they actually brought it out on the Draymond Green podcast. Like the video if you saw that podcast. If you haven't seen that podcast, check out that podcast as well. How clutch Demar actually is. When you talk about Demar Derozan, going back to 2012, Demar Derozan is the most clutch player in the entire NBA. Now, when they define clutch shots are any shot hit within 5 minutes or less of the fourth quarter, and anything that's in overtime. Demar Derozan leads the NBA with 64 of those clutch shots since 2012, the best there is. Number 2, Stephen Curry. Number 3, Damian Lillard. He's got 61. Steph has 62. Number 4, tied with Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook. Hey, for anybody that's got that Russ smoke for me. Yeah, I mean. And then number 5 is LeBron James. And when you see this list, right, to me, it brought out the question, when we're looking ahead and when we're looking at what Demar Derozan can do and how he's kind of shouldered that fourth quarter shot, right? We've always talked about the guy making the big shot, the guy that's going to knock down that big three that's going to give you the winner, the guy that's going to make that big a big bucket that's going to put you ahead. We've always talked about that guy like he's the leader of the team. He's the number one. He's your go-to player, right? And maybe that is the case. Maybe Zach LaVine can move into that. But when you're playing the law of odds, when I saw that he hit 64 since 2012 to lead everybody in the NBA, even heading into next season, even if Zach does take this big step, even if Zach does prove to be the number one guy, even if Zach does prove to be our go-to bucket getter, would we be smart to take the ball out of Demar's hands in the fourth quarter? And that's the question that started formulating, right? When we're looking ahead to next season, when we're looking at what Demar Derozan can do and kind of what he did the rest of this season, right? Like he started making clutch shots this season at a weird rate. We started looking at DeMar knocking down these clutch shots and saying, man, like it's immediate, right? It got to the point where we expected it. I think it was I want to say it was the Lakers game, not maybe the Atlanta game, one of them, right? But immediately, ball goes into DeMar. DeMar's bringing the ball up left side, coming up the court. You see the defense shift to slow him down. You know he's taking the shot. But there was just that feeling of we've seen him in these moments before. We've seen him knock down this shot before. We've seen him finish this off before. And of course he did, right? He ends up knocking down the big shot, giving the Bulls a big time lead. And he's one of the best players to do that in the NBA. And I thought that was such an interesting stat. And I wanted to bring that to this podcast because when you're looking at, right, coming into next season, you want your best player that's great at something, doing something, right? And when we look back, right, egos can destroy things, and I think that's something that Billy Donovan is going to have to manage very well here coming into next season, especially with 100% Zach LaVine back. But when we're going into next season, right, not to say Zach's not going to get some of those game-winning shots, but when you look at DeMar DeRozan, I thought back immediately to that Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc shot that Scottie didn't want to go in on and he sat on the bench for, right? I thought back immediately to that, and here's the reason why. Scottie was the leader of that team. Scottie led that team in every statistical category, was one of the best players in the NBA. Scottie was the guy that was getting it done. But when you needed somebody that was going to knock down that shot, you wanted somebody that you knew could do it and you knew could do it before. And so I immediately thought back to that. I'm like, man, like, could that be what the Bulls makeup is going to be next year? Where, yeah, Zach LaVine may be the number one. Zach LaVine may be the leader on this team. Zach LaVine may be our main stat getter. And I do believe that's pretty much going to be what this team is going to be built around moving forward. Zach LaVine's going to be your one, DeMar's your two. Hopefully Patrick Williams takes a step and becomes your three, and you're talking about Vooch at your four. And we're going to talk about DeMar in that second segment on what we expect him to end up doing next season and kind of my expectations on him and hearing from you guys as well. You guys in these lives, you know what I'm saying? I like a little back and forth on it. So if you got the comment section going, I see Baki in the comments. I see McSeason in the comments. Shout out to you guys for pulling up. First off, hit that like button if you haven't done so. And also just check in and let me know how you guys are feeling on this as well. But I absolutely feel like we could see a situation where DeMar could be our guy that closes out those close games, those 1-point games, those game-winning shots. Unless Zach has the better shot. Based on the odds, based on the numbers, based on what we've seen him do since 2012. That's a long time to go back. While Zach LaVine can still be a leader of the team. I don't think the two have to be in line. I don't think your best player in your team has to always be the player that gets that best shot. I mean, and I think there's a change there, right? Where it kind of changed a little bit with LeBron because LeBron was the guy that was going to pass out of that shot because he felt like that was the right basketball play to make. So I'm going to make the right basketball play. But you always knew he was the best player on his team. But I thought that was something that could be such a different dynamic for the Chicago Bulls. And it goes back to what I talked about with what this team could be coming into next season as a whole, right? Maul, what's good? With what this team could be going into next season as a whole. You could come in, if this team's 100% healthy, you could be talking about a team coming into next season that you don't know who's taking that last shot in the fourth quarter. You don't know who's going to knock down that big shot in the fourth quarter. You don't know who's going to be the go-to guy. It could just be the guy that's cooking. You could see Vooch taking that shot. Could be Patrick Williams. Is that's the right shot if he's upped his offensive game, right? Like the Bulls' predictability in the fourth quarter, I think is the biggest change that they bring to this season. And it's the one thing that I really want to see them continue on. It's the one thing that I really want to see them play on because they've got so many different kinds of players that can attack or that can go out there and get themselves a bucket. at a minimum in that starting lineup, right? At a minimum, you feel like in that starting lineup, that's the kind of team that you have. And hopefully you do have something kind of playing out, right? You hope that you have something with Ayo DeSumo coming off the bench. He's going to be able to knock down some shots, right? And some of those rookies coming along. But I just really looked at, when you look at the fact that DeMar DeRozan is one of the best clutch bucket makers. And I mean, that's among guys like who we know, right? Like Jimmy Butler's on that list. I believe he's top 10. I don't believe he's top 5. He's definitely not top 5, but I believe he's top 10, right? Those are the kind of guys that you want to go to in that moment. And I think that's kind of where we're going to see if ego does play into it or not. And that's going to be interesting to see heading into next season. First off, appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with your boy, man. We're going to get into this next segment where we kind of talk about my expectations going into next season for DeMar DeRozan, what I think he's going to give this Chicago Bulls team, and what I feel like we're going to be able to do with him. And how far this Bulls team can get with him, essentially. Hold on, we got bots in this mug. Hold on, put that user. Or no, we're gonna block that user on YouTube right there. But before I do that, right there, man, I want to tell you guys about Built Bar. Listen, at this point, if you haven't tried Built Bar yet, you're just holding out. Built Bar is coming out with so many different things that taste great and make you feel good while you're eating it. Let me tell you about the new flavor of puffs that Built Bar is introducing. I feel like we're giving you guys a new flavor every single week. Cookie dough chunk puffs. Come on, y'all. Cookie dough chunk puffs. And when I tell you, when you bite into it, you would not know that this is a protein bar. It is that good. And it's only 160 calories. It's got a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. It's for everything that you want. You want to get in shape? You want to eat better? Get in on that. You want to just have a late night snack that's sweet and not going to just mess up your entire diet? Get in on the Built Bar Puffs right there. I like all Built Bar. The cookie dough chunk puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they are healthy and tasty, chocolatey covered cookie dough with the light, fluffy texture. So good. You gotta love it, man. You're going to love the new cookie dough puffs, whether you need a snack for a workout or just a late night treat. Make sure you go grab yourself one at Built Bar right now. Go to BuiltBar.com or go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order. All right, y'all. Let's get into this second segment where we're going to be breaking down kind of just some expectations for DeMar DeRozan heading into next season, right? Because he's a player that when you look at him, right, he had to take on the mantle of number one this season. And when you heard him talk about, kind of playing for the Bulls and what it meant and shouldering that, he embraced that role. He embraced being the main option. He embraced being the guy that had to knock down the big shot. He embraced everything about that. But as I look at DeMar heading into next season, to me, I think Hayes said it on here. DeMar shouldn't have to be that same player next year. DeMar shouldn't have to be the guy that has to make every single bucket. DeMar shouldn't have to be the guy that's solely shouldering the offensive load, and especially if Lonzo Ball is healthy, right? I would like to see more of what we saw early on in the season. Remember, early on in the season, we saw Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan both cooking at a high level. They were one of the highest scoring backcourts in the fourth quarter alone, right? And they were really just getting that job done together. That's kind of what I want to see this Bulls team get back to. And I feel like just being able to split that, but also understanding when it's somebody's time to go. Being able to share that load doesn't mean you can't go out and have your 40, 50-point game, right? Being able to share that load to me means you're making it easier on everybody else. And I think that's what this team has to do for DeMar. This season was not easy for DeMar. He talked about it. He talked about what it takes to win and why it was so important in the Draymond podcast, why it was so important that Zach got to get that playoff experience, because you see what it takes to win. He was just like, winning is hard. It's not easy to do in this league. Winning is hard to do in this NBA. And if you're going to go all the way, you're going to have to go through a ton of things, and you're going to have to help each other out. And I think that's what this Bulls team is going to have to do around DeMar, right? There were times last season where we'd look around and we'd be like, DeMar's going to get a bucket. DeMar's going to get a bucket. And then like people would there were some Bulls fans, and it's okay if you were in that group of Bulls fans, right? That were like, DeMar's ball hogging way too much. You got to get everybody else involved. But then when you kind of see what was happening throughout the season, and you hear, of course, hindsight's 2020, you hear it in post, right? Zach LaVine wasn't healthy. He wasn't able to go. There's reasons he wasn't involved. Ayo Dosunmu kind of new to this thing. There's reasons he wasn't, right? Like, then you're like, okay, well, if DeMar's going to go, for me, I was like, that's the dude I want taking all the shots. I'm fine with that. I'm willing to live with that because he's breaking Wilt records. But he shouldn't have to do that this season. If 100% healthy, and this falls on Billy Donovan. Hayes ain't here to hear me bash Billy Donovan here this time, right? But this falls on Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan has to come up with a scheme that gets everybody involved. That scheme at times, or even early on in the season, right, became very much 2 1-on-1. You weren't getting Lonzo Ball involved enough in that fourth quarter. Lonzo Ball essentially became a spot-up shooter in the corner for you, which he was good at, right, which he was able to knock those shots down. He was able to get those buckets, and he actually won some games for you from that spot. But when you're talking about Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, all of those guys playing together. You can't just the worst thing that they can do is have a system like it was with PG and Kawhi when they were healthy out in LA, right? What did that system look like? And it never really looked, you never saw them play great together, but it was because literally it was, let me get this guy a shot. Now let me get this guy a shot. Bringing the ball up, I'm going to get it to Kawhi. Now I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to get it to PG. I don't want to see that here in Chicago. We have a next level point guard on this team. And so I'm going to be honest with you. When I'm talking about my expectations for DeMar DeRozan, I'm almost hoping, and it's crazy to say, right, but I'm almost hoping DeMar's scoring goes down based on the inverse effect of everybody else being healthy and being able to get out there and put up more points for DeMar. Zach LaVine's point totals dropped off 3 points per game based on injury this season. That's a lot. And you've got Zach LaVine now coming back with the new take foul rule. So he's going to have a lot more opportunities on the fast break. That's where Lonzo comes in as well. That team was deadly on the fast break. I hope that Lonzo's point totals go down. I would like to see Lonzo around kind of where Zach was this season, on 24 points a game, 23, 22-ish points a game, still being an assassin, still knocking down big shots, still getting to the bucket, still scoring efficiently, right? The same way that he did. But I want to see that inverse effect take place this season. I want to see Patrick Williams getting his scoring up, being able to take shots. And there's a whole article where Bleacher Report is literally destroying Patrick Williams. I wanted Hayes to be on here for this because we might need a little Petty Roosevelt on that one. But you want to see that increase in scoring from everyone else so that DeMar doesn't have to shoulder the load. I mean, honestly, what we saw this season, while I loved it, while I enjoyed every minute of it, the question comes in, right? Is that winning basketball? Is that the level of basketball that's going to get you further in the playoffs? Is that the level of basketball that's going to get you past the Milwaukee Bucks? And the answer is no. Based on how a lot of these teams are playing the Bulls, especially coming in, you also have to think, right? They're coming into this season. Teams have seen that for a full year. Teams are now okay, this is what they're doing. This is how they're doing it. Now you got to change things up completely to me. Not completely. But now you have to focus on getting everyone else involved, especially in those fourth quarters. I'm fine with DeMar being the guy that gets the big shot. I'm fine with DeMar being the guy that knocks down the big shot. I'm fine with him having the ball in his hand in the fourth quarter. But I think there has to be more of a system that involves everyone else around this team, including Vooch, right? There were moments last season where Vooch was cooking in the fourth quarter, and we just wouldn't go to him. You have to find a way to make DeMar's life easier. And I'll be honest with you, right? Everybody talks about this window that's coming into play. That window opens up if you don't have one guy working his butt off to get a bucket. That window widens if there is a window, right? If you don't have one guy working his butt off to get a bucket. If DeMar DeRozan is able to come into next season and pick and choose his spots where he wants to dominate and have 40, 50. You know what I mean? Like that's the biggest change that I think the Bulls can make next season to help DeMar. And I think for DeMar to help himself, right? Like there were moments where DeMar, now I'm not going to say that all season DeMar didn't ball hog at times, right? But there were moments last season where DeMar was a little bit too, I'm going to hold on to this mug, and other people were cooking. But again, that goes back to Billy Donovan. You have to put a scheme in place that makes the rest of your team better. And so my expectation, if I was going to put a number on it for DeMar, my expectation and hope, I guess, is 24 points a game for DeMar. Probably shooting around the same percentage. Of course, shooting around the same percentage. I don't think that'll go up. He's been an incredibly efficient player in his entire NBA career. I would probably say 5 rebounds. And DeMar, just give me 4 assists. Just give me 4 assists. That's all I'm asking. I'm just asking for 4 assists. Yeah, 5 rebounds is a lot. Let's say like 4.2 rebounds and 4 assists. That's all I'm asking for you, brother. I'd appreciate it, DeMar. Yeah, I mean, like, let somebody else shoot the ball. We want to see what these other guys on the team have to do. Unless we lose, and then you shoot the ball. As we head into this final segment, though, man, we got a couple of things we want to get into. We appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening to us. As always, man, hit that like button, subscribe to the page, and if you're on the podcast side, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating so that we can become the best Bulls podcast on the net, the number one. When you search Chicago Bulls, I don't want to see any other Bulls podcast number one except Locked On Bulls. Let's keep it going, man. As we get into this final segment, man, I want to talk about a former Chicago Bull who seems to have lost his mind, and I want to get in some questions from you guys, man. So drop your questions in the chat. I should be able to see them in the chat. Let me make sure I can see everybody's questions and comments and stuff like that, because I think Restream is not showing me them as much. But okay, 72. See, yeah, Restream ain't showing me everybody comments, but I got my YouTube open, so drop some questions and stuff in the chat as well. But hey, did anybody see what Jimmy Butler's got going on, brother? We got to talk about this. Jimmy Butler, a month ago, afro, nice fade around it. Yeah, I mean, got the nappy going, and he's got dreads all of a sudden. Jimmy Butler's rocking dread, full on dread. I'm not talking about starter locks. I'm talking about dreads down to the back. I'm talking about he's got the Fetty Wap joints. Bro, Jimmy Butler's out here rocking the Fetty Wap joints. What are we doing out here? Is this okay? Are we allowing this? Are we okay with this happening? Does he take this into the season? Because if he takes this into the season, you would have to think that Muzz are going to be out here frying this man, bro. I have never seen, bro, the NBA players out here rocking the hair weaves. I'm not ready for that, bro. I'm not ready for the sudden switch ups, bro. Exactly. McSeason in the chat. He said he got the, yeah, baby. Jimmy Butler walked onto the court. I'm like, hey, what's up? Hello. Bro, I thought it was Ja Morant when I first seen the picture. I'm like, what is it? Why are they talking about Jimmy Butler on this? And then I saw the video of him like end up getting his hair done. It's regular braids, bro. The hair come out to like right here. By the end of it, he got that joint stacked on top of the head. Yeah, I mean, what are we doing, Jimbo? Come on, brother. I had to get into that, man. I had to get into that, bro, because I thought I was losing it, bro. Now, here's the thing, right? Now, the hair pieces in the NBA have already been a thing based on what we heard last week also, right? With LeBron rocking the little hair plugs on this month. Is this a different version of the LeBron hairline? Is this a different version of the LeBron hairline? Are we okay with this? Somebody let me know in the comments below. Let me know in the chat. Bro, I was dying out here, man. Let's get to some of you guys' comments, man. I want to make sure I leave time to answer some of you guys' comments and questions. Shout out to you guys for tuning in and rocking with us. Jermaine asks, who should the Bulls go for at the trade deadline? Jermaine, you're already at the trade deadline? But I don't know. And this is not me copping out, right? The reason I'm saying I don't know is because you don't know how people are going to play. You don't know who's going to be healthy. You don't know what teams are going to hold on to pieces, what teams are going to be looking to get rid of pieces, right? So I don't know, right? I think you could look at that Atlanta team and feel like there's some pieces on there that they might want to move because you're talking about a team that has talked about moving Clint Capella and John Collins. Now, those talks have quieted down, but a lot of times, right, those are the guys that end up getting moved, right? Like, when you look at the guys that wanted to be traded in the offseason and they don't get traded and they start the season, those are the guys that usually end up getting moved before the trade deadline. But I'm nowhere near trade deadline yet, my guy. Shay asks, do you think Patrick Williams can turn into a Ron Artest type of player? Probably not, right? Like Ron's got that nasty that you always have, right? I think Patrick Williams can be a solid defender. I think he could be a really good defender, actually. I have him taking a step to where he's one of the best defenders in the NBA next year. But Ron Artest had such a dog in him, bro. Like you gotta be a little bit off to do a lot of the stuff Ron was doing, man. But absolutely, I think that he can take now the Ron step in Indiana would be interesting. That would be an interesting step, but I don't know if he's there yet. What did Captain say? Said Kendall Gill rocked extensions back in the day too. Somebody tweet me that picture of Kendall Gill rocking extensions. I need to see it. I do not remember that at all. Tavia said, couldn't believe Jimmy did that. Everybody don't look right with dreads. Baki said, Jimmy, take that hairstyle into the season. I swear I'm catching every Heat game just because of that. Bro, that would be wild, right? And the crazy thing is, right, what if he get his hair snatched out? You got to think about that. What if somebody like going for a swipe and they just pull a dread out? I'm gonna lose it. Adrian says, hey Pat, have you seen Drummond's on-ball defensive stats, particularly on interrupting passing lanes? He's surprisingly disruptive. Maybe we might need to trust the philosophy and identity a bit more. I haven't seen those stats specifically, but based on just kind of the kind of player that Andre Drummond is, right? And you know he's going to be in the passing lanes. You know that's kind of where he interrupts it more. Not a dominant shot blocker around the rim, right? Which is why a lot of people didn't like the idea of going out to get Andre Drummond. But when you talk about it, right, he does so much before you get to around the rim that he's a really solid piece for you at your backup big man position. I think a lot of what Andre Drummond does is going to be beautiful off of the bench. And I talked about it, right? Like, don't base anything you're thinking of Andre Drummond off of for what you saw in Brooklyn. He's not coming here to be your starting big man. I'm gonna be honest with you. If Andre Drummond starts at your big man position, we're in a little bit of trouble. That means a major piece of our team got hurt and Andre Drummond had to come in and start. He's not here to be your starting big man. Andre Drummond's here to be your backup big man. So think Philadelphia. Him in Philadelphia was such a nice addition to that team. I think it's their biggest loss that they're going to experience there because they have nobody to back up Joel Embiid. They wanted I never can remember the young fella's name that they wanted to back him up. If somebody remembers it, drop it in the chat real quick, and I'll see it over here. But I never remember what his name was, but he just never was able to replicate the production that Andre Drummond did for Joel Embiid. A lot of you guys were in on the live call over on the Windy City Breeze, right? When I be calling the games. Well, what I say is, did Joel Embiid turn an ankle or something? Did Joel Embiid get hurt? And then we just see him come back in. He was fine. Nothing was wrong with him. He just had so much ample time to sit on the bench, and that rest is going to be huge. Not Claxton. Claxton's in Brooklyn. I'm talking about the young fella in Philly. What else do we got on here? Shout out to you guys for dropping so many questions. What do you think the Bulls 9-man rotation at opening night is? Good stuff as always. Appreciate you there. Is that Samade? I'm trying out here. Think you coming on Samade. I'm gonna go with that. Paul Reed. That's exactly who it was. Shout out to y'all. Opening 9-man rotation. That's a lot of players. I'm hoping for 100% health, right? So if I'm not wishing any ill will on nothing. So we're starting off Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic. I think Ayo Dosunmu is one of your first players off the bench because I think he might be looking to take a step offensively. I think early in the season, you're going to see Kobe White off of the bench because the Bulls really, really, really are big on letting this guy have enough rope to end his own career. Right? So, and not end his career, but end his time with the Chicago Bulls. They're going to give Kobe White every opportunity to play. So I see him as a piece there. Caruso, of course. Then Drummond. That's 9, right? Yeah, that's your 9. I don't see Dragic getting a ton of minutes. I don't see Dalen Terry getting a ton of minutes early on. I don't see, you know what I'm saying? These guys are going to have to earn their time with the Bulls. So I think that's probably the lineup that you want to see. No, did you see how his teammate was looking at him when he was tying his shoes, when he was tying his shoes up? Yeah, bro. I think everybody was looking at him a little bit crazy, right? What other questions we got here? Adrian asked, Pat, do you think it's possible for DeMar to play like a Middleton role this year? No. Um, I'm not a Middleton fan based on the amount of money he gets, right? But I also will not disrespect the man outside of his offensive game. I'll disrespect his offensive game a little bit. Chris Middleton's an up and down scorer. When his shot is on, he's able to knock down shots. But on a night in, night out basis, Chris Middleton's one of the best defenders on your team. Chris Middleton's one of the best players that you're going to have out there facilitating the ball. He's great in the passing. He does a lot of things well. I just feel like based on him scoring, that's kind of what you paid him to do, and you don't get that night in and night out. But there's a lot of other things that you paid him to do that he's really, really good at. So I can't be mad at Chris Middleton on that. The Daily Buckets asked, shout out to the Daily Buckets. Do you expect Zach to be more vocal than past seasons? I think so. But I have a tough time saying more vocal, right? Because I think Zach talks on the court. I think Zach, he talks on defense. He does those things, right? But there has a talk too. I mean, we've seen Zach be vocal, right? Like he's to the point now where he feels like he should be getting certain calls and stuff like that, and he feels like his teammates should be getting certain calls. He's willing to get that technical foul. He's willing to run out there and get into it with refs. He's willing to talk to players on the other team. I just think that Zach's more of a I'm gonna let my game do the talking kind of player, but I don't think he's more of the silent type. So is he gonna do more talking? I guess yeah, but I think it's because he'll be in more positions on the court. Let me see some other any other questions that pop out to me here. Mixed season. Do you think Goran gets more playing time than Kobe? I don't. Not early on. It'll be on Kobe White to prove it. It'll be on Kobe White to prove that he's supposed to have those minutes. And to me, that's what it'll come down to. Have you seen Io's workout vids? Yeah, I saw him. Yeah, no, Io looks nice. Io looks like he's going to come into the season and be a really good contributor for the Chicago Bulls. I'm really excited to see what Io's going to bring to this team. And I'm really excited to see the leap that he's going to take this season. I think that's going to be, that's the reason we all feel okay about Lonzo taking his time coming back, right? Like we're all expecting this leap from Io DeSumo. And you also have to take into account, right? This is a contract year for Io. Io didn't get the 3-year that Marko Simonovic got. He got the 2-year. So this is a contract year here for Io DeSumo. So now we're talking about he's going to be trying to show out to say, hey, listen, y'all going to be paying me a whole lot of money next offseason. I hope y'all know that. What else we got? So do you think Goran won't have a role if everyone's healthy? I think Kobe takes a hit based on Goran's style. He was promised a role. I mean, there's a lot of players that have been promised a lot of stuff. And when you're winning and you're rolling along, right, you don't get that stuff. And I think that's kind of what it comes down to. I think he'll play, but I don't see him playing a ton. Yeah, I mean, I don't see him playing a ton. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us. As always, man, Hayes will be back tomorrow. He's just getting the new studio set up. You'll have us both back in the building for that one. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. No, on the podcast side, this is up a little bit late, but we wanted to go live. We wanted to give Hayes as much time, but he just wasn't able to get it back up. So it's all good. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing us love. Thank you for making Locked On Bulls your first listen. Now, make sure you make Locked On NBA your second listen, where you're getting in just 30 minutes every day latest NBA updates, latest NBA reaction, all that good stuff. You can catch me on today's episode over on Locked On NBA. What did we talk about yesterday? We talked about the Draymond wanting a max extension. We talked about what teams we think won't be in the playoffs going into next season and who the Warriors should pay. So make sure you guys go over there and give that a listen as well. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us. As always, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. Make sure that you follow me on everything at Pat the Designer and follow me and Hayes on everything at Locked On Bulls. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Peace.